Hello, and welcome to Chatting, a podcast where people chat about how they learn and use English. My name is Sam, I'm a CELTA teacher and a performer, and I have a particular interest in pronunciation and expression. In each episode, non-native and native speakers will chat about their experiences with English, share their advice, and, at the end, I'll give some pronunciation tips for you to take away and practice. So, ready? Let's get chatting. This episode, I'm chatting with Anton. Anton is from Finland. He has lived in different places in Scandinavia, and he works for a trade media company. We were online for our chat, which was mostly okay, but there were one or two spots where our sound went a little robotic. Anyway, we chatted about growing up with two languages, living by the sea, abbreviations, and always counting numbers and spelling words in one language. But I started by asking Anton to tell me a little bit about himself.
Alrighty, well, hello, I am Anton and I come from Helsinki. I have lived in the Scandinavia, Sweden especially, as a young child, but I have moved back and forth and I have been in Finland for half of my life, so almost 15 years. And so this is definitely home.
Fantastic. Tell me about when you started learning English. How old were you when you first started?
Definitely since I was very little, because I have English as a second mother tongue. So since I was very small, we spoke Swedish and English at home. So there was always those two.
How amazing that you started really from very young with two languages. Do you ever remember one language being stronger than the other at any point, or were they always quite equal as you were growing up?
Up till now, I think that even on a daily basis, it varies who I speak the most in that language. So when I speak, for example, today, I have been speaking mainly Swedish at work.
Okay.
But when I get home, I speak in English. But yes, I think that when I was younger, watching, for example, films, when they speak very quickly, sometimes that's where I say I can't understand, or I don't feel confident enough. But then once I start watching more and more, there's no problem.
Did you ever feel that one language was easier than the other?
Yes, English, of course.
Oh, really? Why,
Yes.
of course? Why, of course?
I think that when I compare other languages to English, English is definitely grammatically much simpler than other languages. So in that sense, it was much easier.
Do you remember English classes at school? If you already spoke English, did you find it very easy being in school, or was it then very different because it was more academic? I suppose maybe that's not the right word when you're little.
No, actually, yes, it suits well naturally when you are, when you start learning a language. You probably start with greetings, then you move on to, a small conversation, perhaps objects and so on. But when you already speak it, you do move into more like academic. I do remember certain books where we were meant to read a book. So let's say, not big book, but let's say if a book has 100 pages, but you have 1 week, and at the end, I remember you will get points where you would do a test. So it will be 10 questions always, random questions about the book. And it wasn't more about your grammar or anything like that, but whether you understood the concept of it. And it's one of those tricky ones that 4 questions, 2 of them are simply off, but 2 of them are very close. And that's where you have to mainly understand the concept of it. So.
And how much English did you have at school?
From when you are little, you start to have it usually a few times per week.
Okay.
But of course, those who let's say you are a beginner, so of course you start to learn phrases, you start to learn numbers and so on. Those who are able to speak, let's say on a fluent level, you move on to text, you move on to more conversations, and it will be typically a few times a week.
And what about going on then after school? Did you go to university?
Yes, I actually did it in the Åland Islands.
Tell me about the Åland Islands.
It's I think I don't know what is it, but I have always lived my entire life by the sea. Always. I've always liked small islands in, but not in the tropical way like most people do, are more like cold places. And in that also it was the fact that there are also many students who are doing their exchange semester, for example, or just
Okay.
a curriculum. So
Ah.
there's a lot of always English used, and
Mm-hmm.
there are many courses that are implemented in Swedish. However, all the content is in English, and in this case,
Ah.
it's more about understanding the concept of it, but also, of course, learning new words, new terms that
Mm.
you would not normally use on a daily basis.
Absolutely. What did you study?
Economics,
Aha.
the, the theory part. So, in that
Oof.
sense, you have to do a lot of reading, and sometimes it's not that easy. When you think you got it, it's not always that easy. So,
No, and also in a second language as well, even though you're sort of bilingual. I mean, that must have been quite tricky.
it is, and in fact, still at work. Currently, I work on a trade media company where sometimes you pick up, for example, media that focuses on something very specific that I don't understand the words in many languages. So you
Right.
do have to do more like a research what they mean
Aha.
and where does it apply. So there's a lot of always many differences in that sense.
Okay, interesting. So you live and work in Helsinki, but your work is it predominantly in English, or do you have many different languages in which you work?
The itself, I would say, is in English,
Okay.
correct? However, the material is in different languages. But for example, if you are given a media that you'd like to contact, or perhaps you need to do a bit more research into them, it varies. For example, if you can do Swedish, Finnish, Swedish, and whatever mother tongue you have, so it's always an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the, you could say, internal communication would be in English, yes.
Okay. And do you find that if you have international people working at your company, that your internal English is very specific to your company, or is it specific to your industry?
Specific to the industry, absolutely.
Okay.
I think that you get used to as well. You know what you deal with,
Uh-huh.
and also the terms. Sometimes, I mean, in different companies, I hear it all the time. In fact, just sometimes, when they do abbreviations, that what does that even mean? So you
Yeah,
get used to your own language, especially working language.
certainly. Yeah. Are there any good abbreviations that you have in your industry?
No, I would say I actually no, I could not say that, to be honest. And even I don't know, maybe this is just a personal thing, but when people say that, could you please do it right away, and or sending me this, I never ever say ASAP or best regards BR.
Ah,
Never,
see, that's
never
funny.
really. I think it's
Yeah.
just abbreviations to save time, maybe written, but
Yeah.
no, I never ever do it. Like, spoken. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Well, it would be strange if you said, BR, and when you left
Oh.
someone.
JK,
Yeah.
but I do hear it a lot.
I think I would say ASAP, but I don't know if I wouldn't say
Mm.
BR. Do you yourself work in other languages other than English, Swedish, and Finnish?
Well, French, but
Aha.
mainly I would say in those three.
I mean,
Yes.
it's enough, isn't it?
Well, sometimes I feel like I can't even keep up, but
Really?
yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah. Sometimes it happens that you can't find the words. I don't know
Sure.
if it happens. Sometimes you do have a specific word in one language, but you can't say it in the other one, and then later on it comes.
Do you find that sometimes that you find the word in one language quicker than another language?
Yes.
Or
For example, when it comes to counting, I always count in Swedish. That
huh.
that is I don't know, or if you write a number or when you dial a number, it automatically goes into Swedish always. Or also when you how do you say when you say my name is Anton, Anton?
When you
So
spell it.
spell it. I see. I have the Swedish word bokstäver. That as well. I cannot do it. I do it in
Ah,
Swedish. It just automatically goes in that way.
yeah. I mean, I don't know much about Swedish. Are there very, very different sounds when it comes to the alphabet?
Uh, Not that many, but I would say the way the sound it is pronounced because it's all the way at the back of the throat, and
Okay.
of course Swedish is very melodic languages, so it
Yes.
goes up and down. So the melody, I would say, is very different. But other than that, well, I guess like every language is, as you learn more, it gets harder.
So, as a linguist, then, Anton, tell me, what do you like about English as a language?
I would say the main and foremost it could be the fact that it's quite universal. Its use is pretty much everywhere. Not only they say it's the business language, but it's also wherever you go, it's most likely that someone will speak English at a good level rather than someone else's mother tongue. So maybe that's also convenience that I do like. Of course, the simplicity. That's something that I think that when it comes to writing, that's one of the things that I do sense a lot. It's much easier to write.
And what about the opposite then? Is there anything about the English language that you think, oh, I never get that right, or I find this really difficult?
Well, I'm sure there's many, but let's see. Maybe there are many English-speaking countries. There's many accents. Some of them are very difficult to understand. A challenge, of course. I mean, the way, for example, you and I we speak now, we could say, this is your accent, this is my accent. I would say standard English, right?
I think it's probably fair to say.
But some of them can be very challenging to understand.
So what do you do then to maintain your English? Do you read a lot in English? Do you watch a lot of TV, listen to podcasts? What do you do?
I read a lot, actually, sometimes at work, not much by choice, but by when you have to have an understanding of, for example, a magazine, like very specific, for example, some technical issues, you do have to read. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I do. I like to read a lot about history. Yeah, I do. Actually, particularly war history, World War I and World War II.
Great. So reading. So if you were to give advice to a learner, a language learner, what advice would you give? Mainly just reading, or would you give other advice?
Well, I think that every learner is different. I think it's first of all, you have to be comfortable with, where you are first, but it is very important to read and also to practice because, as you know, as the saying says, practice makes perfect. It is really important to use it, even though you might not know at first it's the lack of confidence or sometimes the fear that, I might say it wrong. Yeah, but it is very important to practice, always practice, I think.
Absolutely, I think so. Practice makes perfect. So practice, practice, practice. I love how Anton always counts and spells in Swedish. If you're bilingual or multilingual, do you notice if you automatically count or spell in one language? Maybe a good tip for English practice might be to make sure you always count the numbers and spell all the words in English. Maybe in your head, maybe out loud. Then you're always using English. So this episode's pronunciation tip is an abbreviations tip. As Anton and I discussed, some people say ASAP and some people say as soon as possible. ASAP is an abbreviation. Some abbreviations are just the letters of the words, like DR for doctor or FAQs for frequently asked questions. Or abbreviations are a shortened version of a word, like approx instead of approximately, or inc instead of including. Other abbreviations actually make another word with the letters, and these are called acronyms. A good example of an acronym is NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. ASAP can also be seen or heard as an acronym, as some people say ASAP, so be quick if you hear that. So here are 3 more very common abbreviations we say and write in English for you to practice. First, the abbreviation R.S.V.P, which we use in English to mean please respond, usually to an invitation, but it's actually French for répondez s'il vous plaît. Try this sentence. We need everyone to RSVP by Friday. Next, the abbreviation FYI, which stands for your information. Try this sentence. I'll see you on Monday. FYI, the meeting starts at 9 a.m., not 10 a.m. Finally, the abbreviation ETA, which stands for Estimated Time of Arrival. Try this sentence. We're driving to your house now. Our ETA is 7 p.m. So, to recap, abbreviations and acronyms are the letters or shortened versions of a word or phrase. The main difference is that acronyms sound like a word. They may not always be the best thing to use when speaking or writing, so make sure you think about who is listening and who is reading your work. Over to you to practice. So, there we are. The transcript of this episode is available to read on the podcast's webpage, so take a look. Join me next time for more pronunciation and grammar tips, more advice, and most importantly, more chatting. My thanks again to Anton, and for her music, a huge thanks to the wonderful Mara Carlisle. Bye for now.